You can follow us on Twitter at SMW Home, and we have a Facebook page as well. It's Sports Medicine Weekly, Chicago's premier sports medicine program, coming your way each and every Saturday between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., only on 670 The Score. Still ahead, we're going to have Inside the Clubhouse with Bruce Levine. That's our next show on tap here on The Score. But in our final segment here, Steve Kashul, Dr. Greg Nicholson is filling in this week for Dr. Brian Cole. We're talking about how frequently do sports injuries occur. Doc, in the U.S., about 30 million children and teens participate in some form of organized sports, and more than 3.5 million injuries occur each year, which cause some loss of time, of course, of participation and experienced by the participants. So it's interesting stats, but boy, we're talking about how frequent we see this. And what are some of the typical sports that you might be surprised, right, at some of the data we see?
Yeah, I think you can obviously say, okay, the most serious injuries occur in collision or contact sports. But think about non-organized sports a little bit. Skateboarding, skating, and just riding a bike. Those have some significant injuries, and you would say, hey, those are non-organized sports, but those are kids playing, right? In organized sports, be it basketball, football, soccer, we've heard a lot about concussions. The vast majority of these are sprains and strains and things that people are going to get over. The issue is, though, of course, as we talked about earlier in the show, diagnosing that injury correctly and getting that young athlete, be they 14 or 11 or 17, the right information they need to get over that. But it's when we start talking about more serious injuries, we think about the kid on the field and all that, but most injuries occur in practice. And there's a lot more practice time on whatever team you're playing on than there are games. And that does make sense. And if you think about emergency room visits, if a kid gets injured, they're going to go to the urgent care center, they're going to go to the emergency room first. So those statistics can be a little bit misleading from the standpoint of how many kids go to an emergency room. I guess we would say, good, go to the emergency room. Don't sit on that injury. Let's find out. Let's get the ball rolling on evaluation and treatment. So I think one of the big issues in injury now is concussion, right, or brain injury.
Yeah.
If we look at brain injury, many of those, again, are in biking, skateboarding, and skating type things that are non-organized sports, maybe a little bit of an extreme sport, even though they're wearing a helmet. That's a little bit, these are statistics, of course, but that's kind of an interesting issue because we hear about soccer, we hear about football, we hear about lacrosse, contact sports where the head is contacting something with concussions and brain injuries. But we know they're out there. The emergency room physicians in this country are well-trained in musculoskeletal issues. But I would like to think that we as orthopedic surgeons, we're kind of musculoskeletal first responders. So, again, we're always out there and, our neighbors are calling us about, hey, she sprained her ankle at the basketball game or hurt her elbow doing this, that, and the other thing. So our lifestyle is wanting to be healthy. We don't want our kids or ourselves to lose that time. So, again, when those injuries occur, I think it's important that they get the right evaluation, the right information, and that doesn't mean you immediately go see an orthopedic surgeon. If it's severe enough, the emergency room, your primary care physician, a non-operative sports medicine specialist, even a physical therapist who may have a walk-in clinic or something like that would certainly be available to evaluate this injury.
It's Dr. Greg Nicholson. I'm Steve Kashul at Sports Medicine Weekly, wrapping it up for a Saturday morning here on 670 The Score. Estimated injury stats from the Consumer Product Safety Commission from a few years ago. More than 170,000 children ages 5 to 14 treated in hospital emergency rooms for basketball-related injuries. 200,000 ages 5 to 14 treated in hospital emergency rooms for bicycle-related injuries. 215,000 for football. Not surprising there, but yeah, you brought up skateboarding. More than 66,000 children ages 5 to 14 treated in emergency rooms for skateboarding-related injuries. And here's another one, trampolines. 65,000 children ages 14 and under treated in hospital emergency rooms for trampoline-related injuries. That's dangerous. I mean, my own boys, I one of them plays football, basketball, and baseball. That's the younger one, the 11-year-old. The older one plays hockey and also baseball, high-level travel sports. But when they're on that trampoline at home, I'm just cringing because
when I was younger, Steve, the injury, the trampoline got a bad name because when I was a kid, it was a trampoline and the springs were there. There were no pads.
Right.
I mean, kids today, they're so coddled. I mean, there's no pads. If you missed, you were in the springs and you lost some skin. But no, it is dangerous because you are accelerating, and the issue is how are you landing. And if you're a young kid, the issue there is if you land incorrectly, one trampoline injury that causes a spinal cord injury or neck injury is fairly dramatic, and there is some liability involved. So trampoline issues, also, it's like anything else. Do you have the talent to do it? Are you doing it correctly? And is there supervision and playing it right? They are a heck of a lot of fun, but your statistics was at 66,000. But if you look, there's 200,000 bicycle injuries. But let's face it, all of us have fallen off a bike.
Yeah.
So it goes with being a human being. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to take a misstep. We're going to fall. We're going to sprain our ankle going around first base in a softball game.
At least they're wearing helmets now. When I was growing up, there was no bicycle helmets, right?
That's what I'm telling you. Kids today, they're coddled. Pads on the trampoline and bike helmets.
When we skied, there were no helmets.
No helmets. That is probably one of the biggest safety issues now. When you go skiing, nobody's just wearing a stocking cap. I mean, I think everybody realizes you want to ski the next day too.
All right, great stuff. Dr. Greg Nicholson, really appreciate you joining us here, filling in this week for Dr. Brian Cole.
It's been a pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
Our producer, Shane Reardon, coordinating producer, Teresa Ann Seeger. Many thanks also to David Cole and Samantha Smith from Midwest Orthopaedics at Rush. For Dr. Greg Nicholson, I'm Steve Kashul saying so long. Thanks for joining us here on Sports Medicine Weekly. Up next on 670 The Score, Inside the Clubhouse with Bruce Levine. Talk with you again next week.